Yes, they will. We don't know the time that they will touch down, the exact time yet, but when they land at OR Tambo, they will arrive in specially designed cold storage boxes because these vaccines need to be kept between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius, which is the average refrigerator temperature. And those boxes will make sure that they're kept in it. And once they've gone through customs, they will travel to a cold storage warehouse in Johannesburg of a company called BioVac, which is a company that has handled most of the vaccine logistics of the government up until now. And there they will be placed in a cold room, a receiving area where the vials will be checked and where it will be established that the people will make sure that they are in fact at the right temperatures. And then they will be distributed into 3 different cold storage rooms to make sure that they're distributed in case something goes wrong. And then they will also be marked with orange stickers by BioVac. And those orange stickers will indicate that they need to be in quarantine, that they are not ready for distribution, and no one must touch them. And while these boxes wait there for about 10 to 14 days, samples will be selected and they will travel to Bloemfontein, to the National Control Laboratory at the University of the Free State, where these samples will get tested to make sure that they contain the right ingredients. And that process will take between 10 and 14 days. And once that is done, the BioVac will start to distribute the vaccines to provincial venues that the health department will indicate. We don't yet know what the list is of those venues. We don't know exactly where they will be going, but we do know that BioVac has a procedure that when they get there, a pharmacist has to receive them and check that they're at the right temperatures and sign them off. And once that has happened, it becomes the health department's responsibility to distribute the vaccines to vaccination centers.
Well, it seems like 10 to 14 days to quarantine the actual vaccines and then another 10 to 14 days to test whether they've got the right ingredients in them. Are we going to wait a month before the rollout actually begins?
No, the 10 to 14 days is the quarantine period. And while they're being quarantined, the tests will be done. So already on Tuesday, BioVac says on Tuesday, samples will travel to Bloemfontein for the testing. And once that testing is done and the samples have been cleared, the distribution will start immediately after that.
Mm-hmm. Now, we understand that this vaccine is about 70% effective. What do you think its efficacy will be on the South African variant of the coronavirus strain?
So that's a question that no one has the answer to because it hasn't been tested specifically on the variant that has been identified in South Africa. What we do know is that 70% efficacy of the AstraZeneca vaccine is based on results in the UK and Brazil. So it's not based on the South African population, even though there is an arm of that trial in South Africa. Those results were not included in the 70% efficacy rate. So we simply don't know what the effect will be. What we do know is if we look at other vaccine results that have been tested on the variant identified in South Africa, for instance, the Novavax vaccine results that came out last week, we did see that the efficacy is slightly lower on the South African variant. We've also seen the same tendency with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine results that was also released late last week. So it would probably be fair to expect that the efficacy will be slightly lower, but what we have seen is that there are still levels of protection. So it's not that vaccines of the results that we've seen don't work at all. We've seen laboratory experiments on vaccines of Pfizer and Moderna, and we've seen that they're also slightly less effective on our variant, but we've seen that there is definitely still levels of protection.
Now, you mentioned earlier that the vaccines have to be kept at a temperature of between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius. We know that our country has some issues with electricity supply and the consistency of that. Will there be generators perhaps at the areas where, or the warehouses that will actually store the vaccine to prevent it from actually warming up beyond a point that it should?
So BioVac has told Bhekisisa that they have generators in place in all their warehouses for in case there are problems with load shedding or any other problem. At the press briefing that the health department had last week, they indicated that they will look at and make sure that the vaccines are only stored when they get to provinces in venues where there is backup in generators in case there's load shedding. Of course, we don't have a list of those facilities yet, so it's impossible to establish in the provinces if the venues indeed all have generators, but the health department has indicated that they will attempt to make sure that that's the case.
Well, let's leave it there for now, Mia. We will be talking to you throughout the day, just discussing different angles relating to this vaccine that's arriving in our country tomorrow.